My advice, I guess, would just be stay consistent and get on camera because, just get out of your sort of your shell and actually start making these videos because it's helped in so many ways with my business. It makes me more succinct when talking to clients. I feel like I'm better when I chat to clients now because I've had this practice of getting on camera and talking about my industry, and the kind of repetitive nature and doing things like podcasts with you has just allowed me to actually become a bit of a better public speaker, which ups my confidence level when I talk to clients and allows me to sell for more and charge for more. So it's kind of like a confidence thing, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, push those boundaries, try some public speaking, try getting on camera and just see how it works for you because it's certainly worked for me.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Welcome, friends, into episode 262, where, my goodness, are you in for a treat with the conversation that we're about to get into here with James Barnard, who is a graphic designer. Well, now, as you'll hear, very specifically and niche down as a logo designer, but has an incredible social media following. In this episode, I consider this a masterclass into how to build social media and how to get clients from social media. Also, how to do consistent content, how to do it well, how to decide what platform to choose, how to be able to split your time between doing service work and growing your social media. So many things covered in this episode, and I'm really excited to help you, for those of you who want to decide what social media platform you really want to capitalize on, how to use it effectively, and more importantly, how to get clients from your social media presence. We also dive into personal branding in this one, which is really interesting too. If you don't know James, you can find out more about him at barnard.co. That's BARNARD.co. You can also get connected with him from there through his Instagram, TikTok, and other socials. His Instagram is hopping right now. That's where I got connected with James and started following him at the time of recording this intro. He has 310,000 followers, and he has racked up millions and millions of views with all his content through the different channels. So needless to say, it was an honor to be able to pick James's brain on how to use your social media to get more clients, how to grow it effectively. I got to give a shout out to ChatGTP as well for helping me nail down the title from this episode, from likes to clients, which ChatGTP did help out with. And my goodness, I feel like that fits perfectly into what we're diving into. So I'll follow up at the end of this episode with some more links and where to go next. But for right now, here's James. James, man, what an honor officially to have you on the show. I was just telling you before we went live here. I've been following you for a little while. I love your brand. There's a lot I really like about what you're up to. Number one, you have such a niche specialized service, which is hard to get to, I feel like, for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Number two, you have a .co. So I feel like we ought to have an automatic kinship.
It's like a bonding thing, isn't it? Nothing to do with the fact that the .coms have been completely taken up, but we're just new media. That's the way .co's work, isn't it? We're just so fresh and so forward-thinking.
Exactly. Well, thanks for taking some time to join today. The other aspect of this that's funny is we're both family men. We both have littles. Both of our schedules did not line up great because where are you based out of in Australia right now?
I'm on the Gold Coast, Australia. So my wife is Australian, and we moved here a couple of years ago from London. We have two young children, a 4-year-old and almost 2, a daughter and a boy. So my life is complete carnage as a freelancer right now. I've luckily been able to carve out a small section of the house, which I can call my office, which is like the corner of the spare bedroom. But if I set up my backdrop, okay, no one can tell the difference. You can't tell that there's screaming kids over there. This is my safe space.
Your safe place. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned the term carnage. Yeah, it doesn't take long for those ages to make a house into carnage very quickly. Usually every night our job is just to clean up the carnage. So right. Glad that we were able to find a custom time here to work. Evening time for me. I just had dinner, and I don't know if you've had breakfast yet or you're about to, but great to connect to your family, man.
Yeah, 8 a.m. in the morning. So let's get cracking.
So I'm curious. There's a lot of different things we could probably go into and talk about, but I think the idea of a personal brand, especially nowadays, is really interesting because one of the main questions I answer and try to give my insight on for folks who are building their web design business is inevitably they ask me, "Hey, Josh, should I do a personal brand or a business name?" I want to turn it over to you, James. What made you go with your last name and your kind of personal brand for your business rather than going with an agency name?
Well, for a start, it was more that the fact that my website evolved from a portfolio. So I made that website to kind of get jobs in the graphic design industry, which is why I started out, using my name. It was mainly just to showcase the work that I did, help me to get freelance work on the side of a full-time business. Because I started out as a graphic designer for the publishing industry. So I was doing lots and lots of work, some really, really big clients, but had nowhere to sort of showcase them. So I made that website as a portfolio. And as the business progressed and I moved more into the freelance side of things and eventually completely logo design only, I just sort of morphed that website. And as I went freelance, my company name was, I just made it sort of to match what the website already was, to kind of capitalize on that brand recognition. Not that I had a brand really at the time. So the website was kind of like just a follow on from that. But, having that as a sort of personal brand has allowed me to target so many more clients. I feel like having being a one-man band is actually way more transparent. I'm not, faking being an agency to my clients. They're very aware that I'm one guy and there's only me working on these projects. So it kind of made sense just to have the website sort of follow on from that.
And as of right now, James, is it you 100%? Like, do you have contractors who help you out, or is it just all you, baby?
So yeah, I over the last year, I've had like quite a lot of success with social media. I'm sure we'll get onto that. But my freelance operation is just me. Now, I do work with the occasional contractor to help with things like logo animation. But I'm right at this kind of inflection point at the moment where I've scaled it so much that I don't have enough time to scale it any further. I need help. So I've reached out to some contractors to help me with things like logo animation. I have a lot of automation in place with my sort of accounting and my lead generation and my sales funnel. But yes, it is just me. So yeah, I'm very, very aware that I need more people to help me to scale this. So I'm right there. I'm right at that point, that sort of crossroads. Do I take this from a sort of lifestyle business and keep it ticking along where it is, or do I scale it up? And I think I'm about to scale.
Well, the cool thing is, if I can add any insight on that based off of what I've experienced, is you can do both. Like you can scale as a solopreneur, and whether it's web design, graphic design, no matter what the service is, the options now are endless to make a one-man team with just multiple arms and multiple extensions. Like you don't need to, and I recommend this to everybody. You don't need to have like an agency name, and you don't have to have like overhead and a ton of expenses. You can be a solopreneur and hire out what you want to, but still be the face of the business, or in your case, I would imagine creative director or whatever that would look like for you. But how do you feel like, is that exciting to you that you live, like we both live in a world now where we can be solopreneurs, but you don't have to do everything yourself. I find that it's like super empowering, exciting now.
It is. And it's also the sort of the start point of becoming like a CEO, isn't it? You're actually having to delegate some things and learn how to be a bit of a boss. That's one thing I used to do in my former full-time roles. I was the head of a small team, and I'm very used to sort of dealing with designers and the training aspect. But actually sort of delegating work, I find it really hard to kind of let go of that control and actually, put some of my high standards to the side slightly so that I can get some help. And like I say, I'm right there. But yeah, I like the idea of having this business, my logo design business, up and running where clients get to work with me directly. And maybe for some of the smaller budget clients, spin off something like a smaller agency to deal with something that's a little bit faster, uses outside help, and maybe I'll just take a cut as a kind of referral scheme. I don't know. It's all very.
Well, I know. recently I expanded on the idea, and I came to this realization more recently that there's kind of, well, there could be 4 different categories, but there's for sure 3 big categories when it comes to like freelancer, solopreneur, business owner. And it's those 3. Freelancer is doing everything all themselves, going from job to job. Solopreneur is kind of the hybrid between managing some people as contractors and then focusing on the business. So you're still in the business doing, whether it's creative direction, project management, whatever it is. And then the business owners are those who are solely working on the business, but they don't have their hands in the actual design aspects, or in my case, building a website. So yeah, I just think that's really cool. I love that we're touching on this already, because I think a lot of folks in your position, James, you do get to a point where, I mean, really the only ways to grow without working 90 hours a week is to just raise your rates and become super exclusive, which I feel like you're already quite exclusive. Is that kind of the crossroads? I guess my question now would be like, what has made you feel like you need to scale and delegate rather than just raising your rates and going more exclusive?
I'd say it's because of the price point. So I've hit a sort of a sweet spot with my pricing at the moment. And I know if I go any higher than that, I really am just going to not get any business. Due to the nature of the fact that you're working with a freelancer, you can't expect to charge agency rates to clients. And I found a really nice sweet spot with clients where, you know, they're willing to pay a certain amount. I reckon I convert maybe 15 to 20% of my leads at that higher price point. But what I'm finding is that there's a huge amount of money to be made in the sort of smaller, those smaller budget clients, the mom and pop shops, the very, very small startups that don't have much cash. They do have some cash, just not quite enough to play at my kind of level. And I mean, I'm really interested to see how I can sort of extract a little bit of that extra cash rather than just losing those jobs. Now, I've toyed with a few different things. Like I recently started an Instagram subscription, and I'm offering those leads out to my Instagram subscribers, so that they can maybe sort of so the younger designers and the more junior designers can chase those leads down, and then they might sort of bounce those ideas back with me over a Discord channel. And then I still get a little bit of money there because the Instagram subscribers come through. It's not a huge amount, but it's sort of me sort of offering up some of those leads to those smaller designers. That's a horrible thing to say. More junior designers or people
Junior
that don't
designers,
haven't had the experience that I've had. Because I've been in this for sort of 13 years now, and I believe that's allowed me to set the bar reasonably high. It's just, you know, a case of finding that sort of sweet spot of the pricing.
Well, I would love to dive into your Instagram because you have a big following there. It's how we got connected. And I'd love to hear some of your strategy as a personal brand there. Before we do, though, I am curious, how did you get to this point where you've refined your services only to logo design? Because what I typically see with graphic designers, and I don't know if you know this about me, James, but I started in graphic design too before getting into websites. I was designing shirts for my band and then started doing CD artwork. And then it was, you know, a full suite of graphic design initially. It was door hangers, flyers, business cards. I would do anything that was print. Eventually, you know, kind of shoveled those off and then eventually just focused on into web design. But for you, what was the a couple of different questions with that. Like, what was the time period for you to refine this into just web design? And what made web design stand out over other branding services you could do?
Logo design. Yeah,
I'm sorry, logo design. Sorry.
That's okay. I started out as I worked in the publishing industry. So I was a generic graphic designer for a lot of years. It was something like 6 to 7 years. I worked for magazines. I worked for newspapers. While I was there, I picked up a little bit of freelance work from clients inside those businesses and also some external stuff. So I was doing this sort of generic graphic design for a very long time. I took on a role for a very big newspaper for a sort of head of digital role. And it was a real firefighting position. I really didn't like it. I ended up losing a lot of the design work in order to sort of fight fires and deal with client problems. And I hated it. I ended up leaving after about 6 weeks. So I went freelance to pay the bills while I found a new role. And, during the course of that freelance career, I realized this is amazing. I get to pick my own hours. I get to choose the clients. I was going into agencies and working on a day rate in agencies. And then COVID hit and I had my first child, Elodie. She was born 4 years ago. So when that happened, I became a sort of stay-at-home dad role. My wife earned way more than I did. It made sense for her to go back to work. So for a year, I was the stay-at-home dad. But in between that, I was doing, keeping a sort of freelance career ticking along. And I realized that I was just doing this generic saturated market of graphic design. There's so many graphic designers out there that can do it all. I ended up watching all of Chris Doe's videos about niching down and pricing my services and learning about the business of graphic design, because I just had no idea. I fell into this freelance career, and I realized I basically had to sit down and wrote some notes. And I thought, what's the part of this industry that I enjoy the most? And it was the logo design and the creation of brands from scratch. I've done a lot of work with clients where I take client assets and I make a website and I put their photos and their logos into a website. I love actually creating something from scratch, and logo design was that for me. It was really, really empowering. I got to be so creative. I really enjoyed it. So slowly over the course of about a year, I changed my website. I made it all about the logo design projects that I'd previously done. And I started rewriting the content on my website to basically target the SEO for logo design services. And pretty quickly, my website got very high in terms of freelance logo design London. I really targeted those 4 keywords. Nice. And then I moved to Australia and ruined it all.
What's interesting about the SEO perspective? One of my colleagues in the web design world does graphic design alongside website services. And she told me, as a heads up, as a secret for everyone, if you really want to capitalize in graphic design, you can do it with SEO, because most graphic designers aren't as SEO savvy. It's usually the website owners who are doing most of the SEO. So yeah, it seems like there's an untapped market for graphic designers with SEO. I'm kind of curious at that point here, James, like, so you kind of started to refine it. Have you ever read Built to Sell by John Warrillow?
I have indeed. Yeah, it talks all about very specifically selling a logo design business, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what made me wonder, is that book is all about a logo design business. So I just wondered if
I was taking notes when I read that one.
Okay, because it seems like you are the real world version of that book. That's kind of
I'm at the start of that book, definitely. Yeah, I have a much smaller operation than what he talks about in that book. But yeah, the themes in that book were amazing to listen to, because it was so specific about my industry. I was like, wow, just taking notes. So in 3 or 4 years' time, when this has grown a little bit, I'll definitely know how to get rid of it and palm it off to somebody else.
There you go. Or you could manage it as a solopreneur for as long as you want. I don't know. That's just why, I just love it. I love the landscape now, because literally, and I don't say this as you, but like anyone listening or watching, you can do whatever you want to do for as long as you want to do it, which is awesome. Now, I'm curious, with your services, I'm sure this bleeds into brand identity. Logo design, I guess, kind of bleeds into that, right? Like, how far do you go with brand identity and style guides and things like that? And then as a follow-up question, I'd be curious to see, like, how do you tell clients no when they want you to design their social media graphics and stuff like that? But how do you draw a line with how far logo design and brand identity goes?
So I found a lot more success targeting the actual term logo design. So brand design encompasses so much. It's such a huge part of a company's personality that I can't do it all. It's everything from, the tone of voice, not just the logo, the background patterns, the colors, the fonts, the brand style guide, the website. It's everything. Now, I start with the logo design conversation immediately, because that's my strongest point. And if the client wants it, I can upsell products based on my past sort of graphic design experience. So I know how to make websites. I know how to do flyers and brochures and business cards and all that jazz. I sell that as a sort of a secondary part, as a sort of phase 2 to each project that I work on. So I start with the logo design because it allows clients to find me much more easily when they're really looking for a logo. That's such a searchable term. Also, it's when you're at parties and someone goes, "What do you do?" And you say, "I'm a brand designer." And I go, what do you mean? What do you mean? If you say logo design, it just clears everything up straight away. So yeah, it's more of like it's like a branding thing for me, saying logo design first, because it allows me to just kind of start the process there. Then if they need it, I can upsell and add bigger packages to my offerings and then sort of sell more and more pieces to increase the budget on each project.
Gotcha. So you are doing secondary and tertiary services, like when needed, or if you feel like it's a good fit with a client.
That's right. And also some of those aren't my sort of strongest suit. So like web design, I know how to build Squarespace websites. I actually started out in WordPress and then migrated everybody over to Squarespace. And that's, those websites only really work for those small businesses that just need a kind of flyer-based website to look pretty, to give their contact information on, to maybe, tell their prices. There's nothing clever about them, but I use the logo and the branding that I create in the design side, and I can implement that into a Squarespace website for them to then take on. Because obviously building websites, they get away from you quite quickly. If you don't have the sort of theme in place and a solidified sort of style guide for that site, you can start changing it and then it just becomes a mess. So I like to kind of set my client up with 2 or 3 pages, then let them, destroy it themselves.
Yeah, nice. Well, the cool thing about logo design too is it generally is going to mean that a business is either a startup, like they're building a brand from scratch, or they're rebranding, which I would imagine, depending on, some startups have budgets, but I would imagine rebrands are probably more profitable if they're an established brand. I'm kind of curious. So you said you went freelance and started freelancing. How did client acquisition happen? Like when you started, I guess the simple term would be like, how did you start getting clients when you started freelancing? Yeah.
I got really lucky. So when I turned the business around and niched down into logo design, 2 or 3 clients based off of referrals from previous jobs. And like I said before, my SEO was pretty good. So I was getting maybe sort of 5 to 6 leads a week. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to for me to convert a few and get paid.
As a freelancer, I was going to say, a lead per day on average as a freelancer, that's huge.
Yeah, not bad. I made the mistake though, at one point a couple of years ago, of putting my prices on my website. So I was getting quite annoyed with people coming to me asking for logos for free or for like £100. It's a little bit insulting when you're sort of playing at my level and someone offers you £100 for a logo. And that's, my logos take me a couple of weeks to do. The whole process is lengthy. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of meaning behind my design. So I was getting a bit annoyed with that. So I put a floor price on my website. All of those leads dried up. I went 2 months without a single lead. It was absolute disaster of a decision. I reverted back from that. And I was really, really lucky at the time. I published, I got a couple of logos published in a book called The Logo Lounge. And it's like this prestigious book for, logo design. The logo design industry has lots and lots of showcases of logos. I made a TikTok video about that, bragging about getting into this book. And that video went viral. So in the course of a week, I got 70 leads. So that lead per day average just shot up. And I immediately realized,
so TikTok is not just 12-year-olds watching goofy videos.
That's right. TikTok for Business is just such an untapped resource. And it took going viral for me to realize that. And
James, don't tempt me with this. Don't tempt me because I've intentionally not gone into the TikTok world.
You're missing out. You're missing out. With all of the content that you create, you could fly on there. It's so easy to grow. Well, I'm saying that I got very lucky. I had one video go viral, but off the back of that viral video, I realized that is huge. I've just got more leads in a single day than I have over the last 6 months. And off the back of that, my business is now booked out for 2 months. I was like, this is insane. Like, why am I not doing this more? So I started getting on the camera more, providing, making more videos, basically answering the questions in the comment sections of each video. Like, how do I find clients? How do I do this in Illustrator? And so I just made content about software tips, case studies, freelancer advice, and stories about graphic design. And sort of cut out a chunk of my day in order to keep creating that content. And now that is like 50% of my day is making content for social media, because the amount of leads that I get from social media is just beyond what I was ever getting from SEO or any sort of referral-based scheme.
I was just going to ask, did you ever do anything in person, any business meetups or anything like that?
So I used to when I was living in London. Now, because of I live in Australia, none of my clients are from Australia, really. I work globally. And also because of COVID, I hadn't met a single person. So it's quite a shame, really. But, over the last 2 years, I haven't met a single one of my clients in person. It's all been done remotely.
Wow. Okay, so one of the things I was most excited about to pick your brain on in your experience is your social media strategy. One final question before we get to that, though, James. You mentioned your pricing. You said you took your pricing off, leads dried up. Right now, you are doing what I recommend that my students do, which is to have your packages, but to either have like a get a quote or have, generally what I recommend for my students is to have like a hidden page that you would send to quote unquote questionable clients. That way you could go right into value-based pricing for really good leads. But the questionable clients, the $100 for website clients, they go to your potential client page. It just gives you ranges that start at. So for you, as of right now, you have 3 packages: startup, professional, and deluxe, that all say inquire for price. So how has that worked out for you, and how does that work? Do you still filter out from there, or does that take you to a price situation?
So initially, when I put my prices on my website, that startup package, I put a price for that. And that's when all the leads dried up, because that price was just too high for a lot of people. So what I like to do now...
I'm sorry. So I misunderstood that. So you put your pricing on there, and that's when
I did. And I took it off because it just destroyed my cash flow. I think it took me it was 2 months. I got 1 lead in 2 months. So it was an absolute disaster from a sort of sales funnel perspective. Now what I do is I funnel them through a questionnaire. It's a very, very simple one. But the first question is, what is your budget range? So it's between 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10, and then 10,000 plus. And that immediately tells me where we're at with this client. I funnel that through a CRM, which I've just recently set up. And from there, I do bespoke emails to each of those offerings. So it's basically right away finding out what their budget is and what sort of level that they're playing at.
Gotcha. Okay, interesting. Because do you feel like you had some potentially good clients that saw that price but just didn't have a chance to talk with you and get any sort of sales because they didn't understand the value?
Absolutely. So the problem with putting those prices on was that there was such a barrier to entry for people. You know, that price wasn't set in stone. I go up and down from that, and depending on the type of client, whether I think they're cool or not, how long the lead time is for that project. So what happened is when those leads dried up, I actually got a logo job for a motorcycle company based in Texas, like a motorbike club. It was the coolest job ever. And I did it on the cheap because it was such an amazing project. That was the only project that I did in that time. And they didn't find me from my website. It was just, I think it was through a Reddit post that they found me. So I realized, okay, you know, I'm missing out on jobs like that by setting the barrier to entry right there on the website. It's a hard bounce for a lot of people. If they can't make the budget, they'll just go to a competitor. So, you know, toying around with it, I found that, you know, I need to get their email. I need to talk to them first. I need to explain the value of a logo and what it can do for their business and how it can sort of turn around. And then I price based on the return of that value. So if they're a mom and pop shop and a new value will give them X amount of dollars, I'll price like maybe 10% of that value and try and sort of talk to them around the kind of the return on investment rather than the upfront cost that they're about to pay.
And how do you avoid wasting a ton of time with clients who are never going to pay more than like $500 or something like that?
Well, it's right there in the first intro email. I basically set the bar. This is the sort of price that we're looking at in a sort of ballpark range. Can you stretch to that? It's the first question I ask, and then that kind of saves us both time. You know, it would save us time by me putting the prices on the website, but they might not get in touch. Also, I wouldn't be able to find out a bit more about their business. And if I check out their intro email and the actual job itself is kind of cool, and I might drop my prices to take that one on because, you know, it could work out better for both of us. It might be a cool story, might be able to work something in terms of a case study. So I might drop my prices for that. And also like the deadline, if the deadline is really long and they don't need it for 6 months, I could work on that and chip away at it over the course of a year and get there for a much cheaper budget.
Yeah, I really like that approach, man. It's kind of the hybrid between having your prices up front on your site versus just putting them on a proposal, which can also catch people off guard. I tried to take that approach as well with just giving ranges for really good qualified leads, but then also the people who I wasn't quite sure about. I didn't want to spend an hour having a discovery call with them. So I would just let them know, here are our basic price ranges that they start at here. You know, are you willing to, or what does a project look like? It's a good fit for one of these ranges. Then we go from there. Yeah. So
it works when there's like a structured offering. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. But yeah, the problem with logo design is that sometimes projects can take me 2 days. Sometimes they'll take me 3 weeks. If I charge for hourly, that range would just be too big. So I have to set a sort of project price for that. I've had logo projects that have taken 6 weeks from my end just to generate ideas from, because of the nature of the business, the competitive space of that logo, trying to find something unique in that space. They can take weeks and weeks and weeks. Sometimes I'll do a sketch and get it first go. And, if I charged hourly, then I wouldn't get any money. So I have to do that sort of project-based pricing in order to stay profitable as a business.
Yeah, logo design was one of my main services when I got started, and I found the same thing. I had some that were like 2 hours. I made a logo. They loved it. And it was amazing. I made like 500 or $1,000 in a couple hours. And then I had some where I made like 20 cents because we had so many freaking revisions. So I think if anyone's curious about how to package either logo design or any type of services, I definitely recommend everyone go to your packages page just as a good reference, which is barnard.co/packages. So your social media, man, I'm only active on Instagram or Facebook. So you may or may not have convinced me to try TikTok out. I knew it was going to happen at some point, but what made you choose these platforms? There's a lot of different places, I imagine, for logos. Like you could probably do like Pinterest. I mean, I can imagine there's a ton of different areas and avenues you could dive into. What was it about Insta and TikTok and maybe even Twitter that made you go full throttle on those?
Well, I was doing when the clients dried up and things weren't going so well. I was doing a lot of sort of time-lapse videos of me making logos. So I'd come up with a concept. I would go in Illustrator, screen record that, and post it to places like Reddit. On Reddit, they would do really, really well on like the logo design channels and the graphic design channels. People loved the behind the scenes look at me using Illustrator. I was like, that's really cool. So I thought I basically just took that content and posted it to TikTok and was making these little videos of me time-lapsing stuff in Adobe Illustrator. And it did okay. It was sort of the real niche graphic designers found me and liked it. I had a few hundred followers or so. And but when I did that viral video, the one where I got on camera and I turned the camera around and started talking about what had just happened, that one exploded. So immediately I was like, okay, I need to get on camera more. People respond more when I'm actually speaking. They respond to person to person, behind the scenes content. I basically made that a sort of part of my day job, was making those videos now. So I was posting to TikTok. Those videos were doing really, really well. People loved the behind the scenes look at logo design. They loved the client case studies. They loved my stories about being a graphic designer and the weird things that have happened, getting plagiarized by people abroad, all sorts of little stories. I was posting that as a secondary thing to Instagram, because at the time Instagram were really pushing Reels. So I was basically just duplicating the content from TikTok to Instagram. So TikTok exploded first. Then, and as I sort of incorporated that video production thing into my daily routine, I got better and better at it. My gear got better and better. I got a microphone and a decent camera, and eventually got to a point where a video took off on Instagram, and it was a really, really short video. It was like 15 seconds long. It's about using the pencil tool in Adobe Illustrator. It was so weird. It exploded. It got 15 million views. And over the course of 2 weeks, my Instagram account went from something like 8,000 to more than 100,000.
Wow.
So just unbelievable explosion of growth on Instagram. And that is just, that ball has kind of kept rolling. I'm at 300,000 followers now, like I think a year later after kind of trying. And because of that, the TikTok and Instagram side of things and the link in bio and find out more about my services, that is now where like 80-90% of my leads come from.
You know what's funny about a weird piece of niche content that you just wouldn't think would be a huge deal? I've found that to be true because my biggest avenue for acquisition, my biggest avenue for like converting really good students is the podcast here for sure. But discoverability for me is on YouTube. Social media is more about connecting for me than discoverability as of right now. But one of my most popular YouTube videos is how to use Preview on Mac. And the reason is because no one does tutorials on how to use Preview on Mac. So it's like one of my top tutorials. It's so funny because I literally just made it because I was getting the question from students on how I do little things. And I was just like, well, I just use Preview and here's how I do it. So I was like, I'm just going to post that on YouTube. And it blew up. So yeah, you never know what like weird piece of niche content is going to go.
That's how I blew up on Instagram. It was a really hidden niche tool in Adobe Illustrator that no one knew you could use in a certain way. You could can manipulate shapes with the pencil tool. I discovered it from another content creator, and I stitched them in a video, and it was basically me going, what? I had no idea you could do that. And 15 million views later, it's just nuts. So yeah, it's crazy. There's so many people who are into a specific industry, and if you can target them, you can absolutely explode.
Now, I would imagine one challenge you have is what a lot of my students do when they start posting content, and that is they attract other web designers who are not buying from them. So for you, James, like how do you, I imagine you're helping a lot of graphic designers, but they're probably not going to want to spend $10,000 on a logo and branding package. Like how are you, or how is that attracting clients?
It works exactly the same way. It's so self-serving. It's brilliant. It's really kind of, it's amazing because you're helping graphic designers and especially junior designers learn about the software and explaining to them how they can sell their services better. But then to a client, you then look like a complete expert in your industry because you're the teacher, you're the professor of graphic design, and they will come to you because of your expertise. Also, when I do case studies, I'm showing the behind the scenes of how I've worked with the client, and that's specifically like that helps logo designers because they can expand on their services and learn from that. But it also shows to a client, look how good it is to work with me, and look how professional I am, and look how this process works. And that has led, when I do a case study, one of my case study videos hit 1 million views, and I got 70 leads in a day. So that is just testament to how that kind of content serves both logo and graphic designers and the clients that are going to come to me.
Interesting. And you mentioned this a little bit ago, but the difference between the two, are they still mirrored? Like is the exact same content you post to Instagram, is that the exact same that goes to TikTok, or do you do different formatting, different hashtags? Like what is the difference between the two? So
the only thing that's different is the sort of the captions and the hashtags, really. Everything else is the same, which is beautiful because I can make one video and then use it across multiple platforms. Even YouTube Shorts now works as well. So there's 3 places that I can post it, although I need to do a lot more work on my YouTube account. But yeah, absolutely. I post to both TikTok and Instagram with the same video, and I tweak things slightly differently inside the app in terms of hashtags and captions, just based on some advice that I've got from other content creators. But the beauty of it is that it's just one video for me. It's one piece of content that I can then use across all those different channels.
Oh, James, dude. I mean, you've convinced me to really think about TikTok. I couldn't recommend enough that you really take YouTube seriously, because you would kill it, man. With your, I mean, I love following your stuff just because I still use Illustrator every once in a while, but I'm not in the weeds doing the graphic design work much unless it's just to stay sharp and kind of have some fun, because I still love it. But I love your stuff, man. You would kill it on YouTube. And with your SEO game where it is, YouTube goes so hand in hand with the SEO side of things. So man, that would be really interesting to see what you do there.
It's interesting. I the longer form content kind of fills me with dread. I've done bits and pieces for, making short courses, and the Designer Boss Summit where I met you, well, not met you, but I discovered you, was creating a piece of content that was about half an hour long, and it took me 2 days to do that. So this is one of the reasons that YouTube scares me, the kind of slightly longer form stuff.
I actually heard this from I forget who it was. It was a YouTuber who was asked, how long should the videos be? And he said, yes. And I was like, that's a great response, because it doesn't matter. Like you could make a half an hour video, but you could probably do a bunch of 5-minute videos. Like you could probably just take a little more time than you might want to on TikTok and Insta. And you could do 5-minute, 10-minute tutorials, and that would be more than enough. And then if you wanted to do a long form one, sure. But I don't know, man. I guess if I can offer any advice, I'm learning from you left and right on this, but if I can offer you any advice, it would be just make them however long they need to be. If they're 4 minutes, then that's fine. You would be fine with that.
It's actually like the way YouTube Shorts is set up now, I can just post those directly. And if I make a video that's longer than a minute, you don't even have to format it for landscape. You can upload the portrait version, because obviously lots of users on YouTube are watching it on their phones. Those videos just automatically format for mobile. So there's really no work that I need to do. The only thing that I might need to consider doing is just making slightly more SEO friendly versions of the videos that I've done, because at the minute they're quite abstract and a bit sort of, they bounce from place to place. They're really random topics. So I need to put a little bit of work into kind of, making that SEO game a little bit stronger so people can find me. Because the thing is with TikTok, the For You page is like where people get you. and YouTube is more of like a search tool, I guess. I mean, you tell me. You have to kind of, to be popular on there, you've got to really be clever with your SEO. You've got to be good with your thumbnails. You don't have to worry so much about that on TikTok and Instagram. So it just feels like a lot more work than what I'm currently doing, but I'm sure I'll get there. The less clients I take on and the more I start charging, the more I can.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you're not at a point where you need to do that, but I would just think like knowing your brand, my gosh, I feel like you would kill it on YouTube. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like social media and trying to get content under a minute is almost more work than like some of my tutorials that blew up when I started were literally, I just screen record 10, 15 minutes, no camera. My hair's like I'm not wearing pants, whatever. I just record and we're good. Although it doesn't matter. We're all from the waist above now. But I found in a weird way, I almost found YouTube easier. And maybe this is just because that's where I started from, but there was almost less pressure. Like I didn't do any fancy overlays, nothing wild. With YouTube, it is definitely more, and this, I'm saying this for anyone who's thinking about where to put content to build authority. YouTube is definitely, I think, more utilized for tutorials and for like, know-how kind of things rather than, because what you're doing is really a mix of like education and entertainment. Like your videos on social media are really educational, but also very entertaining with a lot of cuts and but that pressure is kind of off on YouTube. Because somebody's at their desktop, they're Googling something. This James guy has a tutorial on how to use the pointer tool on Illustrator, and it could be 10 minutes and they're hooked. So I don't know.
I found that's the success I've had on social media is because I've learned how to get my point across really, really quickly now. So I'll write a script for my videos and then cut them together using jump cuts. So they're like 40 to 60 seconds. That's the kind of sweet spot for a video. So I really refine that script so that I can basically say what I'm trying to say in half the time. And that is, I think, is one of the reasons why I've had so much popularity is that, when you go on YouTube and you want to find something out about a software tool, you have to watch a minute of Gumph plus the intro plus, and you're skipping forward in the video. With that, the TikTok video and the Instagram stuff, it's right there. It's like, this is what's going to happen. This is how you do it. Blah, 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 and then it's done. And then, that's like follow for most graphic designers. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I've actually got a following from the content rather than just, views on videos. Yeah,
that's one reason I like what YouTube has done recently, and what you just said and alluded to there, James, may be the cause of it, which is the like the video snippets you'll see on Google searches now. They'll show like highlighted pieces of a video. So like on Google, if you search for Divi tutorials, you'll probably see some of my stuff. Often it takes you right to where I said the goods. And my later videos get right to the point. Whereas when I started in 2017, they're very like, hi, everybody, I'm Josh. I do websites and hope you're having a good day. It was, rather than getting right to it. But luckily, I feel like Google had so many people like myself who are like, damn it, Josh, just get to it. And then they just like, screw it, we'll get to it for you.
Yeah. I say this in my short course, you have to treat the content like a newspaper headline. You go right at the front in the first 3 seconds, you tell them what they're going to get and what this video is about. You explain a little bit, then the main sort of bulk of the video is more sort of towards the end, but you have to sort of give them a headline to keep them there. And doing that in the sort of first 3 seconds is a really hard thing to do. So, I've tested a lot of ways to do this, but writing a script is just the really invaluable way to get that point across. And if you can refine it in your copy, then you'll be fine on video.
Oh, that's beautiful. And was it Jump Cut? Is that what you're using?
Yeah. No, sorry. The software package is Premiere Pro, but the Jump Cut is when you basically record one long take. So I just basically read off a script, 3 minutes, 4 minutes long, and then in the editing software, I'll just bunch all that together by removing the dead audio in between, and that way I can get a 3 minute long ramble into a minute.
And what's your content strategy right now, James? How often are you posting?
So I'm posting about 3 times a week, as much as I can, essentially. So I post case studies, freelance advice, software tips, and just general stories. And I try to sort of vary that content as I go along. There isn't much of a strategy. I have a list of topics that I'd like to cover, and I have ideas in the shower, and I get out and I write on my little content list. So I'm working my way through those, but they revolve around those basically 4 content pillars, which I found works really, really well. And my followers now, they're expecting that content from me. So I'm kind of just giving them more of the same. So yeah, case studies and software tips. Those are the 2 sort of really, really popular pieces of content.
So I assumed, maybe wrongly, when I saw your social media, your Instagram at first, that with over 300,000 followers, 3 posts a week at least, I assumed you had a team helping you with this. Is that not true? Like you're doing all this yourself?
Nope. No, this is all me. So I follow a guy called Jamie Brindle, who's actually a sort of pal of mine now. He's like a freelance expert. He recommends 50% of your time should be on client work and 50% of your time should be spent driving new business. And this social media content creation is the driving new business for me. I have to put lots of time into doing this. I devote probably 2 or 3 hours to each one of these little videos. I'm getting faster at it, so it's that time is shortening. But I definitely get at least 2 videos out a week, plus a few stories on Instagram, just to kind of keep the engagement ticking over. But yeah, it's just me. So that's one of the reasons why the client side and the actual lead times for logo design jobs has probably slowed down a little bit, which has meant my wait list has got quite long. I have a 3-month wait list to work with me right now, which sounds amazing, but I'd like to speed that up, for my clients, and B, so I can get more money through the door. So I'm all about sort of refining my processes now, automating whatever I can so that I can sort of spend time creating this content. I'm almost at the point where I might just kind of repost some of this stuff, because I've got like 300 videos that I've done now, and I could probably just start from the beginning and go again.
Dude, that's so funny you mentioned that. As I was thinking about like TikTok, and I'm still not even on Twitter, I thought about jumping on that too, but my thought was like, oh, a bunch of new content. And I keep on remembering what so many social media people have said is like, just repurpose your older stuff. First of all, everyone who's current with you is likely going to forget about something you posted, or it's a good reminder. And then one thing I have to remember, and I don't know if you've struggled with this, but it's like somebody, like I know I posted a tutorial 3 years ago on Facebook. And then I just think like, well, it's done. I already posted it. But somebody who just followed me yesterday has no idea that tutorial is out there. So I can keep on. I think Brendan Burchard calls it circular viralation or something like that, where you basically just take your high performing posts and just repost them. So it's
usually like spins off from larger pieces of content. And I imagine as a YouTube creator, you've got videos that are 15 minutes long, which you could then cut into little sections for short form video, or make a blog post about it, or a carousel or something. There's that one long piece of content is now sort of choppable into those little chunks. So from one piece of content, you can make 6. But you're right about the older content. I need to start looking at that more. It's just my sort of standards. You know, my videos have gotten better. If I suddenly repost one from a year ago, I'm going to notice the quality difference, and also the backdrop will be different.
I was just going to say that's the only. That's the hairline's back.
I might just redo the videos so that you know it's in my new setting.
That's what I did with my most popular YouTube tutorial was on Google Analytics. And I looked at the one I did from a few years ago and I was like, it's good, but it's not great. And I could do so much better now. I could tighten it up. So I redid one, and just the old one, I just changed the thumbnail and just said new, updated version, click below. And that has already taken off. The cool thing about YouTube, last thing I'll say about YouTube, but, because I feel like I'm just trying to get you on YouTube. The cool thing is it does so much work for you with search, as long as it's a good video, which, my gosh, where you're at, I have no doubt a ton of series of videos would go. But I'd be curious to see what your monetization would look like, even with short form, because those of us who are in the educational space, especially if we're recommending tools, and there's companies that are like, ooh, like James uses our stuff, Premiere Pro, it'd be awesome to get him to support this. Like the monetization stuff is huge. The CPM, the cost per Mila, is huge for folks who are like educating with tools in mind. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Well, I've had people and clients and brands reach out on social media, and I've done a few projects with Adobe and Logitech and Astute Graphics and things like that. So there's a kind of a secondary income for me there. The more that this social media platform grows, the more sort of income I'm generating from those revenue streams. So it's kind of diversifying the company a little bit, which is incredible. So we're bridging into content creation as a business here, which is kind of nice. And I really enjoy the content creation side. It's so rewarding seeing those views come in and the genuine comments from people who are finding it helpful. That's it's just the most self-serving thing ever. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you're a good example of half creator, half service provider. One of my good friends in the industry is Jay Klaus. He has a brand called Creator Science. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but right down your alley. I often tell him to check you out because you would be a great fit for his show. But it really is about like mixing creator with services and everything else that could be with the creator. I think a big thing that I've noticed though with people who stick with it is you got to enjoy the content. You really do have to enjoy it. Like I love podcasting, and I'm getting back into YouTube because I miss it. I stopped it for a while just because I kind of shifted from teaching the technical side of web design to teaching the business side of web design. But now I'm like re-energized and already have more videos coming out. So I guess maybe what a lesson learned that you've learned, James, would be to like do content and use platforms that you enjoy and that you're on and you're familiar with.
Yeah, and speak about subjects that you're familiar with, obviously, because then the content is never ending. And I could talk about graphic design all day. I could talk about, working in the software. I love platforms like Illustrator and Photoshop and all of the little hidden quirks and the things that you didn't know. So one of the things I noticed when I was working in an agency, a designer would sit by the side of me and look at my screen and go, what did you just do there? And learning off another designer by sitting next to them. We can't do that anymore. We live in a remote world. We don't work in teams like that way. We don't sit next to people in offices as much. So that kind of learning is gone. So I think it's one of the reasons I've been so successful is just showcasing that hidden method and just actually, showing my audience how I work in these softwares, either by doing time-lapse videos or software case studies. It's just kind of behind the scenes stuff. Another thing that's great is live streams, specifically for designers who are new and don't know the software packages that well. I run live streams with Adobe on their Adobe Live platform where I'll sit for an hour and work on a project. And the amount you can find out from watching people work is just beyond ridiculous. The way people work, the little hidden, keyboard shortcuts, scripts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You would just never know because it's not, apparent in the sort of tutorials. So watching someone work on a live stream like Adobe Live is just beyond amazing.
Yeah. And the hybrid to that is, the first probably 3 dozen of my YouTube channel, my tutorials, I literally would just work for 10 to 15 or 20 minutes on something. What I did, I don't know if you know this, James, but what I did when I built my YouTube channel is I literally just share what I was doing on a project. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. That doesn't seem to have been talked about much. So I would just post like, here's how to do this divvy header trick. And I would just work and basically screen record it. And I might trim out a little bit of fluff here or there. But what you mentioned there is really interesting because I think early on, what helped me build my authority was people felt like they were sitting beside me. And I treated it like that. It's so funny you mentioned that because when I started doing tutorials, I remember when I was mentoring in a high school here locally, and I would literally do that. I would work and build website stuff and have a student watch me. And I literally thought about that visual when I was doing tutorials. I was like, I'm going to pretend like there's just somebody right next to me and I'm teaching them how to do it. And I think that translated into that touch online. So it's a great way to go about it. And you never know what little things that you do that you don't think anything about it, but the world may be like, oh my gosh, James is genius. Like that little thing that isn't significant to you can be very significant to someone who doesn't know.
I have that all the time. It's one of the things I try and work into my videos is that if I cover a topic that's probably been done before, I might work in something like a little hidden way to do something a little bit quicker, a little bit better. Like for instance, in the transform panel in Illustrator, you can put maths in there. You can add and subtract the values of your properties by typing in asterisks or backslash. And I just did that at the end of one of my videos, and the video, the main bulk of the content wasn't that popular, but that little hidden tip at the end, people are like, whoa. You can do maths inside those panels. And then there's another video out of that. But one thing I will say is if you're struggling for content ideas, is whenever you have a problem in a piece of design software or, you have an issue with web design and you go to Google to try and find the solution, that is a video right there. That's a piece of content that you could make because 9 times out of 10, someone else is going to have had that problem. So make a piece of content around that. And if you don't, at least leave a like or subscribe to the person that has helped you out because, it's free.
Yeah, well, and even if it's something that's been covered a lot, it's like maybe you have an interesting take on it or no one else is you, you could put your own flair on it.
Yeah, the software might have updated as well.
Look, there are thousands of tutorials on how to migrate WordPress websites, and mine still comes up to the top because it's my own personal way to go about it, and I explain it the way I explain it. So you never know what's going to hit and click. Side note, this is a little off topic here, James, but I'm kind of curious with tools like Canva and a lot of these, I don't want to say do-it-yourselfer design programs, but they're DIYers. Illustrator, I mean, I love Illustrator, but somebody who's going to open it for the first time is going to struggle unless they've had some training or follows you. So How do you feel about Canva? Like, is that a tool that you feel like could work in your world? Do you hate it? Are you completely against it? What are your thoughts on some of these DIYer type tools?
Well, I'm contractually obliged not to say the CANVA word and talk about Adobe Express instead, because it's that's the competitive version. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about Canva. It's great that it empowers people to do very simple things in graphic design, and that's a fantastic thing. Also, it's web-based. That's amazing. You don't have to install any software. That's absolutely incredible. My wife uses it for her company. The issue I've found is that it can sort of, it's very templated. So you're seeing a lot of the same templates out there. Yeah. And people that are using it are able to create pieces of graphic design. But my wife will go, "Can you tidy this up for me?" And I'll go into the template and I'll be like, "Oh, God's sake."
Was I an illustrator?
Yeah, exactly. It's such a pain. It's slower. So obviously, for people who don't have graphic design resources or can't afford the software, that's fantastic, and I'm all for that. That's empowering for small businesses, which I absolutely love. One thing that I can sort of work in with that with my business is creating templates for people inside packages like Adobe Express and Canva. So when I give them a logo, I can export their files and throw all of that, those colors and those fonts and those logos into those packages, and then they can make their own templates, or I can create templates for them inside those packages. That way, they don't need a graphic designer to make absolutely everything for them. They can roll out social media posts and things like flyers and banners because of the sort of grunt work that we've done beforehand. So I think that's cool. I like that.
Well, I will back you up on that and saying that, like, I use Canva a lot. We do, especially now that I have a team who helps me out with the podcast graphics and a lot of social media stuff. We use that as, like, I'll create a template and then have the team go in there and adjust things. And but it only goes so far. There's a reason why I haven't canceled my subscription to Adobe with Photoshop and Illustrator, because inevitably I need to go in there when things get serious. That's my take on it, at least.
Definitely. There are some tools in those packages, though, that you can't find in the main sort of Adobe software. Like, there's like background removal tools. And
that's what sold me on Canva. Yeah, Canva's background removal. Really, that's literally why I signed up for the pro version. I was like, "Yep, that's worth it right there."
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me about Express. I don't know too much about Adobe Express. I mean, how close is that to Canva? I haven't even opened it, so I don't even know where it's at.
It's the same theme. It's a web-based graphic design platform, so you can create all sorts in it. Like, your social media templates, even does a little bit of video editing. You can make animated GIFs from it. It's basically the same as Canva, with a few added bonuses that if you're familiar with Adobe packages, it'll be second nature to you. And also, it's great for clients. For me, so I can. Once I finish the logo project, like I said before, I can just dump all of their files, their style guide, their logos, select all of the color ranges for them, and select the fonts, and basically solidify their brand so they can't tweak it and change it and add random fonts and colors that they shouldn't. They can stick to a sort of style guide that I can set them inside that package, and then they can run with it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, James, this has been great, man. We're getting close on an hour here. I know I'm getting close to bedtime here for the kiddos where I'm at. You've answered a lot of questions that I had. I mean, I was curious about how you're time managing a lot of this stuff, and just your approach now versus when you got started, a decade plus ago. It's been really cool to hear your strategy on social media and how, it sounds like it's like 50-50 now between the social media stuff versus what you're doing. But I think more importantly, you enjoy it, and that's evident. And it's cool that you are really having a good time with the educational side of things, but making it fun, entertaining. You mentioned a course, right? So do you have a course for graphic designers? Is that right?
I have a course for winning more clients on TikTok. So it's a short course. So if you can find it on my website if you go there. It's not it's very, very succinct. It gets to the point quite quickly. But if you're looking to start on TikTok and get out there in front of the world and actually try and bring in more clients that way, as a graphic designer, I can help with that. So barnard.co/TikTok, and you'll find it there.
Well, I'm linking that because I think you're going to have a new student. I'm definitely very curious. I tell you what,
if you sign up to the newsletter on my website, you actually get the ebook for free. So go and just download that. You don't have to pay for the course.
I'll pay it too, though, because worth it, I'm sure. But yeah, man, no, this has been great. This has been super fun. I really enjoy talking these strategies because I think the reality is, and one thing I've tried to help people out with is there's so many questions about how to market online, and they're like, what social media platform do I do? YouTube? Do I do TikTok? Whatever. I don't know. Maybe as like a final question, for somebody who is maybe the James of 10 years ago and you're wanting to figure out what is best for you and where to market, what would you recommend that they do, particularly if they're wanting to market online?
My advice, I guess, would just be stay consistent and get on camera, because, just get out of your sort of your shell and actually start making these videos, because it's helped in so many ways with my business. It makes me more succinct when talking to clients. I feel like I'm better when I chat to clients now, because I've had this practice of getting on camera and talking about my industry, and the kind of repetitive nature and doing things like podcasts with you has just allowed me to actually become a bit of a better public speaker, which ups my confidence level when I talk to clients and allows me to sell for more and charge for more. So it's kind of like a confidence thing, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, push those boundaries, try some public speaking, try getting on camera, and just see how it works for you, because it's certainly worked for me.
Yeah, I don't know if you've realized this, but pretty much almost every answer you've dished out here are like little 2-minute clips that could be clipped out.
Yeah, we're going to chop this up into a piece of content.
It's a good example that you're just like, you're that muscle. That muscle is something that you get when you get used to answering things with brevity. Shocker. I really struggle with being way too fluffy and being long-winded on stuff. So even doing the short videos, as much as I don't love them, that minute window where, because I will do, like on this podcast, I'll say like, this week I had James on the podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I know I've got a minute. So it forces me to get the top points out within a minute. And there's a lot of power to that. That's a great point.
There is. It's also great for people that aren't comfortable with public speaking, because you can just record and let yourself ramble and then just use the edit to trim that down. And people expect those edits now. They're just kind of par for the course, the sort of cutting between what you're saying. It makes it go faster. And without it, people get bored quite quickly. So it just kind of helps, you get your point across faster and allows you to, someone who's not a public speaker, to actually become successful on camera.
One thing I teach a lot of my students too, who are getting on video, is it's okay to have like 8 bad takes and then get the one. Do you still do a lot of bad takes, or do you find yourself?
I certainly do. I did the live stream of me editing a TikTok reel, and everyone watching the live stream got to see all my bad takes. It's quite embarrassing. So I had to, cut those out live on air, but it totally happens. And it's embarrassing to myself recording and messing it up and going, oh God, and just taking 8 times to get through the same line. It's really embarrassing. Often I'll rewrite part of a script to stop the tongue twisters, because I just can't say that line and try and change it. But yeah, just embrace the jump cut. That's all I'll say.
And I don't know about you, but I found that if I have like a series of videos to record, I'm really bad getting started, but then I get into the flow and then I can cook through the rest of them. That's actually, I can't let you go before I answer this or ask this question, James, because I meant to ask this earlier. Are you bulk recording content and then just scheduling it out a few times a week? Or are you doing it weekly? What's your practice for consistency like that?
I can't find the time to bulk record and change. I do it right before I post it. So I'll set a day when I'm going to do it, and I'll block out a bit of time for that. And let's say I want to post at 3:00 on a Tuesday and 3:00 on a Thursday. In the morning, I'll write that script, record, edit, and do it all in one go. Because like you say, trying to batch that all up, it just becomes a mountain to climb. So the only thing I'll do in advance is have a sort of content list for me to work my way through, and I'll put ideas on there. And then in the morning of a Tuesday, I'll go, right, what are we going to do today? I'll pick a content idea, I'll write the script, and because it's only a minute, I can do the whole thing in probably about 2 hours. So that's one of the beauty, the great things about short form video, is that the actual production side of things isn't too intensive. It's probably just under 2 hours for me to get one of those out. And that 2 hours of work is worth every penny when it comes to the leads that come in from those videos.
There it is, everybody. James Barnard, this has been great, man. Super fun.
Thanks,
you definitely gave me a lot to think about with just social media strategy and TikTok in particular. I'm excited to see you blow up on YouTube here pretty soon once you get that going. And yeah, man, I'm really excited to see you scale. Maybe we'll do a round 2 once you take the next level in your business to see how you.
Yeah. I'd like to pick your brains on that, because I'm definitely at an inflection point right now. I'm at a real crossroads. So we'll see how things progress next year.
Anytime, dude. Let's do it. Well, thanks so much for your time, James. I'll make sure we have your website and social media and email list and all the things linked in the show notes. And until next time, man, thanks for chatting.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Josh.
What a chat. What a chat. with James. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. As I mentioned, I really consider this like a masterclass in social media and how to get clients through social media. I am just, quite frankly, not the best with social media. I don't find it as intuitive, maybe because I'm at the elderly age of 36 now. But there's so many ways to utilize it, which I think is awesome. I mean, it's daunting sometimes because there's just so many things you can do. But one thing I love about this podcast is to be able to pick the brain of somebody who's doing it very well and hear how it's helping grow their business and what the tactics and strategies are. So thank you to James for being so open and transparent about what he's doing and what's working for him. Again, be sure to go to his website at barnard.co, barnard.co. You can get connected there with him through TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you're following or wherever you're active. On Instagram and TikTok, he's at Barnard Co. And of course, we'll have all of these linked at the show notes for this episode at joshhall.co/262. I hope you enjoyed this one. Leave us a comment, and if you would, share this episode. If you know somebody who would benefit from this, consider just sharing it. You can DM them, you can tag somebody, you can share it on the socials where you see this, or if you're on my email list, go to joshhall.co to sign up for my email. You'll get all of the podcast episodes, and you could just reply and send the email to somebody. Forward it. That's what I'm looking for. Anywho, thank you to James. Cheers, everybody, to using your social media to get more clients and making the world a better place.